Ujiri's out in Toronto as the president there. What does that mean for the Toronto Raptors after firing an executive right after the draft, but before the free agency starts? We'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, Ace Bailey reportedly is happy to report to Utah, which is an update on a previous report. And then also we're going to talk about which team or teams walked away best from the NBA draft. We're going to get into that all and more on today's Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On NBA Game Night, where it's every game, every night, even when there's not games. I'm joined by Swiper, one of the hosts of Locked On Nuggets in the building. I'm Haize, one of the hosts of Locked On Bulls. It's been a very, very interesting week from when we did the show last week till now. It's been a lot that's went down, a lot that's happened. KD's officially been traded. The draft has happened. But something that happened today, one of the latest pieces of news, Masai Ujiri from with Toronto, after being there for, I think, 13 years, is out. Apparently, they agreed to part ways. Reportedly, he could have another job lined up in Atlanta somewhere down the road there, maybe even in Denver. But what do you think about the Raptors parting ways right after the draft, but before free agency?
Well, obviously, this is something that had been in the works for a while. I would say this, that the reputation of Masai Ujiri, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, I think the reputation for Masai has kept him, I think, with the job for as long as he has one. I think that as a president and as a leader and as a culture setter, he is one of one. Him, Sam Presti, I would say Tim Connolly, there are certain people that are able to establish high-end, extremely proficient basketball cultures. And I think he is one of the very best at it. Hayes, but from a basketball decision-making, I think that when it comes to the draft picks and the players that they had in-house, and I think the trades, the lack of trades that they would made over the last few years, and really for the last 5 years, I would say, there's just been, I think, some disappointments there. And I don't want to just say that's all linked to why he was why they mutually decided to let go of each other. But Hayes, I went through this earlier. Like, you look back into the draft, 2017, they get OG Anunoby, really good. 2020 in the first round, they get Malachi Flynn. 2021, they get Scotty Barnes and Delano Banton. That's good. And then they get Grady Dick in 2023. They get Jacoby Walker last year in 2024. And now they get Colin Murray Boyles this year with their pick from South Carolina. But remember the OG trade. Remember the Memphis Grizzlies reportedly had 3 or more first-round picks on the table for OG. They didn't get as much for OG as they thought they would get. And then you look at the Pascal Siakam trade. They could have traded Pascal Siakam a little bit earlier and gotten more for him. And then when they seem to be tanking, like they should be tanking, they trade a first-round pick for Jakob Poeltl to get him back onto the roster. So you just kind of look at like the decisions they made when they should have, I think, and some others may think, been in the situation to blow up the team a little bit. I would say after the 2020 season. And remember, in 2022, they made the playoffs as well. So they've had some good seasons in there, but I think in terms of like straddling the line of mediocrity, that's what the Raptors have been. I don't think he's completely for blame for that. I don't think some of the players panned out to be what they thought they would be. But remember, Fred VanVleet walked away basically for nothing. Then you got OG and Pascal. They had their core of the championship team that I think stayed around a little bit too long. So I think Masai's great. I think he's going to find a job ASAP. Again, he's one of the people that has the highest reputations in the NBA among anybody that works in this business. And I think when you think of Masai too, like you think of somebody who's genuinely a great leader, a really good person, somebody who has literally helped Basketball Africa become what it is. I mean, he deserves a lot of credit. Again, not as much maybe as Dikembe Mutombo, and may he rest in peace. But he has had a instrumental role in helping for the continent of Africa to continue to move forward with the NBA to upscale their basketball program. So he has a lot of great qualities about him. Like I said, he will find another job ASAP. It's really unfortunate it didn't work out with the Raptors, but 13 years, that's an awfully long time.
Yeah, I mean he's had a heck of a run there. He's able to bring a title to Toronto, which is huge there. And I do think like there have been times where it felt like they held on to versions of the roster a little bit too long, and not to slight them or anything, but I think every executive runs into that where either you make a shift or you have to start realizing like, hey, maybe there are new eyes that need to be on this. And maybe that's where they were. The Brandon Ingram trade was still a weird one for me personally when they made it, because it seemed like a time where they were going to be shifting the roster differently, and it almost put them back where they were when they had Pascal. But they got CMB in this draft, Colin Murray Boyles, like you said, they got some talent there, and Masai has really helped them get there. Now, let me ask you this: the state of the Raptors right now, how far off do you think the Raptors are from being really competitive in the East?
Well, here's the thing. I think it's hard to talk about this, Haize, without talking about the financial implications. Their ownership, uh, one of the things that they're juggling is the amount of money that they're kind of handing out right now. So I think attention is very much going to be kind of driven around their approach to the CBA and to the first apron and how exactly they're going to operate their roster. Because again, MLSE is the basically the company that owns the Raptors, and they actually have purchased even a larger portion of this. They essentially, when he got hired, when they gave him when they gave him a new contract extension in 2021, they had already had some hesitation about giving him like the amount of money that he was giving them. And then if you look at the rest of the organization, with the things that are developing with the TV market and all this other kind of stuff, I think there's so many things that are going to go into what they're going to do with their personnel and with their roster. So for me, is as much of a talent disparity that I think exists between them and like contending or even just being a high level seed in the Eastern Conference, as much it is how much of a financial commitment are they actually willing to make sure they have the players in house and in place to be able to do this. I think Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, and RJ Barrett, that's a really good start. Grady Dick, another good player. Then you have Jakob Pertl, you got Jacoby Walter, Mongbo. They have a lot of players that I think can do things at a high level. But Scotty Barnes now with no Masai might be on the table. And they might be willing to move someone like Scotty Barnes for someone like Giannis Antetokounmpo. Again, I don't know if Giannis wants to be traded. He's ever said everything that about not wanting to leave Milwaukee. But if they want to make adjustments to the roster, they do have the assets to be able to do it. I'm very curious, Haize, to see how in a long-term format, RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, and Scotty play together, given that they're three wings that are also really big. All of them need the ball. I think that Brandon Ingram like has the chance to be like a very dynamic all-ball player because of his skill set. He's a shooter, long, like he's somebody that can really attack closeouts. I think RJ Barrett showed a lot as an offensive engine last year, especially in the first quarter of the season when he was going nuts. I think that Scotty Barnes can be an elite two-way player in this league. He's already one of the best transition players in the league, one of the best half-court defenders in the NBA. I mean, honestly, hey, they got a lot. It's just a matter of like, can they keep figuring it out? Like, what's their process going to look like? Like, are they going to be able to take some of the steps in their development and in their maturity when the season starts, and especially getting into mid and into the late season? But also, I didn't even mention Emmanuel Quickly. That's another good player they have in their roster. But again, that's a smaller guard making like $32 million a year as well. Like, again,
it's just coming.
Yeah,
I see moves coming for Toronto for sure. Like they have to make that roster make a little bit more sense, and they could be trying to fill out of like who fits where and how before they make that decision. I don't know how active they'll be in this offseason going forward, but I do see coming into the trade deadline potentially, and that could be determined by where they are in the Eastern Conference. I like a lot of the Raptors roster. Yeah. I just don't know how it's fitting together yet, and maybe that takes creative coaching. We'll see how it happens there. But like I said, they've almost put themselves right back when they had those interchangeable wings when OG was there and Pascal was there, and they had Scott. Like they almost put themselves right back there with drafting CMB and trading from Brandon Ingram. But maybe that's just me and my lack of vision, and maybe they'll work it out and they'll be a team to make some noise in the East.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I like the Raptors. I like their organization.
Yeah,
I like the way they do their business. I like the way they ran. And honestly, I think Scotty Barnes, in 2021, again, I might have been too high on him. I was like, man, that's a player that can be a superstar one day. Cut out of Florida State, big, strong, fast athlete, really intelligent. So his ceiling is like one of the 10 best players in the sport. But it's Scotty figuring out some of the offensive stuff and figuring out how to make his game translate consistently, especially in a half court setting offensively with shooting, playmaking, all of those things he needs to continue to add to his game. But again, if he takes a leap, Haize, then they're going to be well situated for years to come.
That's a fact. That's a fact. So we're going to continue. We're going to be talking about Ace Bailey coming up next and what that situation is like in Utah. But first, we got to get to a message from Skims. If you've been on the hunt for men's underwear that actually fits right, feels great all day, and doesn't stretch out or ride up, Skims has you covered. You've probably heard the hype. I certainly have, and it's real. Skim Men's offers a full lineup of boxer briefs, classic briefs, cotton, and stretch options, all designed for comfort and style and movement. Whether you're hitting the gym, traveling for work, or just hanging out at home, these are the pairs that move with you and stay in place. If you want something for working out, the Stretch 5-inch boxer briefs gives you full mobility without the synthetic, overly athletic feel. Prefer a classic look? The Cotton 3-inch boxer briefs are soft, breathable, and built like the ones you've always loved, just better. And if you are a briefs guy or curious to try them again, Skims nailed the sleek, secure fit that makes you forget you're wearing anything at all without sacrificing support. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com/LockedOnNBA and Skims Store. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Skims is the official underwear partner of the NBA, WNBA, and USA Basketball. More Locked On Game Night coming up next. All right, Swiper. Ace Bailey. A lot was made of Ace Bailey leading into the draft about him not wanting to work out for certain teams. Apparently, rumored he was trying to get his way to Washington. That may have been where he wanted to go. The Utah Jazz ended up taking him. All that be damned if he didn't want them there. But it came out today from his representation saying this. He's thrilled to be going to Utah. Obviously, it's an honor to be selected in the top 5 of the NBA. We think that he can do a lot of great things out there. He certainly should get a ton of playing time, and he'll have a lot of chances to show what he can do. So we think it's a great situation for him basketball-wise. Now, this is the first that we've heard anything positive. There's been a lot of negative talk around Ace Bailey and his thoughts of going to Utah. How do you feel, Swiper?
Man, I feel like Ace is so caught up in narratives at this point, and some of it is his and his team's responsibility for making sure that he doesn't fall victim to that, especially just early in his career. I've heard him be called everything but a child of God by NBA fans, and the way people are talking about him, you would just think that he's just done the most heinous thing of all time. Like, Ace is so young. Like, he's 18 years old. And for me, I think his ceiling is incredibly high. This is a dude that averaged 18 points a game last year, 7 rebounds, not much playmaking, but 4.5 threes a game, shot 35% from 3, 46% from the field. He's about 6'9", almost 6'10". Honestly, he has like so many skills that can truly aid an NBA roster. And next year he's going to be with, if the roster stays the same at least, Isaiah Collier, Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, John Collins, Walker Kessler will be there. They got Keontae George from Baylor, Taylor Hendricks they took a couple years ago, Kyle Filipowski they drafted last year, Bryce Sensabaugh on the roster. They have a lot of talent. Jordan Clarkson is still there. So I think for them, it's really going to be about how can they best position him to utilize his skill, to allow for him to learn on the fly. I think Coach Will Hardy is one of the best young coaches in the sport. He's a modern coach with a modern approach. He really tries to make sure he's maximizing the players on his roster. I think if Ace, and I say this if as I believe he will, if Ace steps into this situation and says that I'm going to be the very best player I can be, I'm going to try to make this team just as good as I possibly can. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to play defense. I'm going to run. I'm going to try to rebound. I'm going to be anywhere and everywhere, and I'm going to try to create and make something shake here in Utah. They're going to have a dynamite player on their roster. And again, I hope he does it, because at this point, it's up to Ace to prove to the world that he is just as good as his billing says that he is, that he's just as good as his pre-draft stock, really even last year before he got to Rutgers, as all that stuff said that he is. And again, with that team, with the rest of the talent on the roster, For the Utah Jazz, they have been waiting for one of their draft picks to take a real step forward, to be the premium blue chip prospect on the roster. And Haize, I think Ace Bailey has the ability to do that.
Yeah, I think Ace Bailey has a chance. Like, I don't think many people have doubted the talent of Ace Bailey. That's why it's like I'm surprised that more teams weren't willing to just take him and just add the talent to their roster. I'm actually glad that the Utah Jazz just took him. The Jazz are a team that have been looking for a star. They're going to keep being bad until they find their star, and they are a team that could definitely afford to say, we're going to take him and we'll let everything else figure itself out after we get him. Let's get him in the building, and at that point, let's develop what we can. I'm not mad at that at all. I think that was the right path to go for where their team is, and now they just got to figure it out. They just have to figure it out. Ace is going to be really good, and I feel really safe in that because I think this is a kid that wants to be great, and I think like take all the extra stuff that's popped out over the last few days. I think that his teammates, his coaches, everybody's kind of vouched for him is the fact that he does want to be great. He does put in the work in the gym. Yeah, he has some little 18-year-old stuff where he's too silly sometimes and stuff like that, but most of us were at that age. Like it is what it is there. So I think that he's gonna end up being fine. Of course, the Jazz, I would think, have to have in their mind that they need to make sure between now and whenever he's up on his contract, they have a situation where he's not gonna want to leave because I just think that that's just what you want to do there. Players are way more aware of the power that they have with contracts, with NIL and stuff like that. They're just exposed to it a lot earlier. So when you have that and agents involved, but as of right now and as it stands for this rookie contract, just focus on developing, giving him his opportunities, and create an environment in which he can develop in. You do that. That's all. That's all that's in your control right now.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm really curious to see what exactly they're going to do with their roster because Isaiah Collier, Colin Sexton, Keontae George, Jordan Clarkson, like they have a lot of ball handlers, like a lot of them. They have a lot of players that I think need the basketball and are trying to figure out how to play the game on ball and to figure out where exactly they need to be and how they need to move. So I really want to know how Will Hardy plans on making sure that they're continuing to develop the players that are there while also allowing, I think, for their most talented player to be able to explore his game as well. But I think one of the earliest things Ace can do is simply learning how to hustle, how to rebound, how to run, how to fill in the gaps in transition, where to be on the court on defense, and how to get there as quickly as possible, learning all of his assignments, learning the playbook, learning his teammates. Because the thing is, if Ace figures out the IQ stuff early, which he very well more than likely will, you couple that with like elite level athleticism and raw, supremely raw talent, then he could be just as good as he wants to be. But I really want to see how Will Hardy utilizes that. And again, Utah, Danny Ainge, they took him for a reason. They took a gamble because he never even worked out for them. But they just said that like this is just too talented of a prospect for us to not have on our roster, given that he's falling. And so they stopped the slide, and then now they get one of the most talented players we've had in the draft. So it's going to be fun. I'm really excited to see him play. And I think that a lot of non-Utah Jazz fans, you should be excited about what you're going to see as well. I'm actually curious about Keontae George, though, now. Like, now that they have all these players, like, are they going to keep him? It looks like Isaiah Collier might be the player that they trust more going forward and the player they're more willing to build around. So what happens to the another lottery pick that they drafted in Keontae, who I think has had some really good bright spots, but he's still figuring out how to play point guard, still figuring out how to man an offense. Shot profile was crazy all over the place. So he needs another situation, possibly, maybe. But again, a lot of moving parts in Utah. But I think we'll have more clarity, hopefully by the time we get to midway through the season.
Yeah, we shall see what happens there. But I'm excited for Ace in Utah. I think Utah did solidly overall in this draft just by getting Ace, and I think that they're slowly but surely getting more and more of a timeline and path there. I do think that Laurie could be gone soon. I think Walker could be gone soon, but they're starting to figure it out, and I hope that they do because this is an organization that's trying to do it the right way. But they've had some issues and hiccups along the way. But with that said, we're going to talk about teams that did really good in this draft. Next up, we're going to be discussing the teams that we felt did the best in the 2025 NBA draft. But first, we do got to get into another message from one of our sponsors, and that is Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's a game day, and suddenly you realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come out with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, and they got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Game Time has last minute tickets and zone deals for big savings like 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matchups. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code that's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. We're Locked On Game Night coming up next. Oh, wrong button. All right. So before we get up out of here, Swiper, the NBA draft day 2 happened last night, and I just want to get your opinions on it. Which teams do you think did the best in the draft last night? Well, the last 2 nights of the draft. Can't hear you, Swiper.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There you go. I want to shout out the Spurs. Goodness gracious.
Yes.
Victor Wembanyama, Rookie of the Year. Stephon Castle, Rookie of the Year. And then you get Dylan Harper the next season. One of the great things about Dylan Harper, Spurs fans, NBA fans, being the son of an NBA player and the son of a mother who was one of your coaches all the way through high school. When you're around basketball intelligence and you're that athletic, you're literally you become a sponge for how to understand the game. And so for Dylan to be going into the Spurs organization with their front office, with their coaches, and what I love is that Mitch Johnson is taking over this role. He's 38 years old. He is well liked and respected within the organization. You're getting a bunch of young, hungry players added to the roster. And I think that their big 4 of young players, I'm not including De'Aaron Fox in this, Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, and Devin Vassell. And then you add Jeremy Sohan into that. They have 5 players that I think have so much room to grow. And I would argue, people can push back on this, that Dylan Harper might have the second highest ceiling of all the players on the roster. And I loved Stephon Castle last season. Loved him going into the draft. I was just floored with some of the defensive talent that he had in college, especially for a player like that young, that good offensively, even in college too. Like, just he's going to be incredible. But to think that you get Dylan Harper at this range and you're having somebody that's that explosive, that knows the game, that wants to get better, willing to commit himself to continue to get better, and that's a point guard, mind you. So they got a point guard in Dylan Harper. They got a shooting guard in Stephon Castle. They got a wing in Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan at the 4, and then you got Victor Wembanyama at the 5 for the time being. They're cooking. I love the Spurs draft, and I love the direction they're headed in.
Carter Bryant is the one. Like, not to say Dylan Harper's great and amazing. That's an amazing pick. But Carter Bryant, with the way that the Spurs can develop players and how they have, I know Pop's not there, but I think that organization is still going to always be really good at developing players. Carter Bryant, who's raw and all that, I think that if he's going to turn into a high-level 3-and-D player in the NBA, it's going to be with the Spurs. The Spurs are the place to be able to develop that the most out of him. I think the Spurs have done great. When we did Locked On NBA, the morning version of the show, I picked the Spurs as my team that did the best in the draft because I think they did amazing in this draft. For the nature of the conversation, though, I'm gonna actually throw in the Phoenix Suns. I think the Phoenix Suns did really good in this draft for what they had to not only trade for Mark Williams, who gives you a center that can start now, which they did need. You also got Kaman Malawach in this draft as well, somebody who has a tremendous upside and an amazing ceiling at that center position. And then to get Rasheer Fleming in the first round of this draft. Rasheer is somebody that I personally had as somebody who could have went right outside the lottery. I think Rasheer is going to be really good. You could potentially have just drafted your front court of the future and Kaman and Rasheer. And what Rasheer does in both passing, shot blocking, and shooting the three ball, that could be really good for this team long run. I do know they're both going to take some time to develop, but I think they did really good in this draft. They still don't have a point guard. It's all shooting guards and centers and a power forward and Dylan Brooks there. And that's what they have there. They don't have any point guards on the roster. They're going to have to figure that out. But I think the Phoenix Suns did really good in this draft too.
Yeah, I mean, considering the fact that the Phoenix Suns basically came into this draft with, I think, just bare cupboards. Nobody was super high on the roster. Nobody was high on the team. Trading Kevin Durant, it's just kind of like, where do you go from here? Is Devin Booker going to stay? Why would he stay there? Now, giving up a first-round pick, 2 first-round picks for Mark Williams, it's a little hefty, but again, that's an extremely talented player. But now they have Mark Williams at center. They got Kaman Malawak at center. They got Nick Richards still, and then they have Oso. So Oso Ighodaro could end up being a good player, good rotational center. He's going to continue to get better, hopefully. I obviously had Mason Plumlee. So they have bigs. But to your point, the point guards are the thing that they need to continue to try to cultivate on the roster. Devin Booker, I think, can play that role. But again, Devin Booker doing it next to Jalen Green, he still needs a lot of development. But Devin Booker, Jalen Green, Bradley Beal, Dylan Brooks, Mark Williams, and then you got Cody Martin, you got Grayson, you got Ryan Dunn on the roster, and now you got Malawak, and then you get Rasheer Fleming. They have a lot to work with. But if I had to say my next team, don't look now, 76ers. I know that
did do good.
I know that it's there's a lot of guards, and I know a lot of 76ers fans are super happy about that. If I say this too, 76ers fans aren't going to love this, but I'm not really worried about the Embiid era. I don't know what that looks like. In the Eastern Conference, if they're healthy next year, they could make the finals because I think the East is just going to have so many issues next season. But look, Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Quentin Grimes, and Jared McCain.
Mm-hmm.
That's serious. That's people that can put the ball on the ground. They can get to the rim. They can create their own shot. And VJ Edgecombe, I mean, I don't want to gas it too much, but VJ Edgecombe could be in the conversation eventually for a top 5 to 10 defensive guard in the sport. He's that good. And maybe that's too low. Maybe he can be the best. But I think that having that kind of versatility on your roster, having that many guards, that many ball handlers, that many people who can attack and do different things and create advantages and apply pressure to the defense, you just can't get enough of that in the league. And they can all create and dribble. For me, that is where the league is headed. And they're going to have 4 of the best of any of the young players on any team in the sport. I think that's going to matter long-term for them.
And I also think what they did in the second round, getting Johnny Broome, was really good too. That's a tough player coming off the bench that can do a little bit of everything. I don't want to gas it, but I do think that he could be a really solid, potentially bench player, role player for them. And so don't overlook that either. So, yeah, I think the 76ers did really good too. I think Memphis, even though for them it was just Cedric Howard, that's another team that I would bring up. I think that they got a perfect replacement for Desmond Bane. You lost Desmond Bane. You get Cedric Howard in here, what he could be defensively, a catch and shoot player, also getting out in transition. I think that that's a really good replacement for Desmond Bane there. And next to John Morant, and you got to see if he's going to live up to the hype that he built in that draft combine. But if he does, they got themselves a steal and not having to pay what they were paying Desmond Bane for. I think they got them a heck of a player. They're a little bit older, so hopefully he's ready to go sooner than some of these other players. But I think Memphis did really good too. I think there are a number of teams that did themselves some really good. This was a draft where a lot of teams got exactly what they needed. Now we can just focus on development. Next season, though, this draft was deep as heck. Next season is going to be even deeper. Swiper. It's going to be crazy.
Well, I mean, the top 3 alone next year are going to be generational in that many players that I think have an argument for top 3, let alone top 2, even maybe top 1. I think a lot of teams are going to be jostling, which is why I think if I said who had the worst draft, I mean, maybe not just for this year with Derek Queen, but the Pelicans traded that 2026.
Bro, that was such a crazy trade.
Unprotected.
Unprotected.
Who do you think you are? It's either going to turn out to be the worst of the picks between the Milwaukee Bucks or the worst of the picks between the Pelicans. So either way, you were going to eat, and you trade that away to the Atlanta Hawks. And the Atlanta Hawks, mind you, they have now been repaid twice over for the bad trade they made. They traded for DeJounte Murray when they gave up 3 unprotected picks and Danilo Gallinari. Then they end up getting Dyson Daniels back in another deal. They get Jalen Johnson. They get Zachary Reshape. And then they get Ace Newell 2 days ago. Like, they're in a situation, I think, that they're continuing to move forward. And again, like I said, somehow, some way, they get an unprotected first from that team. I'm telling you, man, Pelicans might be on the way down, but the Hawks, they might be setting themselves up for, like, we can take over the Eastern Conference at some point, depending on where that pick falls next year. Like, if they get Cam Boozer next year with this roster.
Yeah, and they added Asa Newell in this draft too. Like the Hawks are quietly like and trading for Porzingis. They see that gap potentially in the Eastern Conference, and I think they're trying to make a run towards it, especially before they got to make a decision to give a Trae Young $239 million extension. I think he's up for. So they're probably trying to make their tough run for it, but also set themselves up with assets down the road now, because if they do lock in Trae Young and stuff, then it's going to be even more important that they have some young assets on rookie scale contracts coming in there. So we'll see what the Hawks do, man. The Hawks, you're right. They set themselves up really nicely with that trade. I don't know what the Pelicans are thinking that. They better hope this Derek Queen thing works out. I like Derek Queen as a player. I have questions about him and Zion being on the same team, but we'll see. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. But I'm excited. It's going to be a really fun year. A lot of stuff happening off season. We're 3 days away from the opening of free agency, by the way. So again, by the time we see each other next week, who knows?
Yeah, bro. A whole league can look different. You never know. You never know. Any last thoughts before we get up out of here, Swiper?
No, man, it was a really good draft. Not as action-packed as I thought it would be, but I like a lot of the picks teams made. I'm actually really excited to see how some of these young players fit with their prospective rosters.
Absolutely. I always like summer league, like for something to just watch to scratch that basketball itch. But there's a lot of young players I'm excited to see in this summer league. So we'll cover that as we go on as well. I think it starts on a Friday, so we'll cover it then. But thank you guys for tuning in, man. Make sure y'all go and support Swiper over on Locked On Nuggets. You can follow me over at Locked On Bulls. We will be back here next Friday. Locked On Game Night is free and available in every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube, the Odyssey app, Amazon Fire TV, Roku TV, Fubo TV, and more. Basically, anywhere you're trying to see us, you can get us there, man. We'll see you guys next week on Friday. Peace, y'all.